Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen.
Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing. This is the preview show. I'm your host Manu and he's Stefan Bienkowski, and we are also in a rush because Stefan, you have to go to dinner.
I have to go to dinner. There's nothing worse than hell hath no wrath like a woman scorn, and any married men or women amongst us knows that knows the expression is a happy wife, a happy life, but obviously I think it works both ways as well, or any other way that you choose to live your life. And I'm not here to question that right now. So let's record this. Let's get our predictions out there, and then let's get me to the dinner table in time.
Exactly. So this will be a quick one. I mean, the preview show is always quick, but we'll make it so quick that Stefan can get safely to dinner, and the table is still warm. The food is still warm.
It's always prick. It's always quick, but sometimes not quick enough, according to some of our listeners who begrudge it going out on a Friday.
In fairness, we're going back to the boring Friday game, so this should be just fine. Although we have a lot of Köln listeners, I shouldn't say that. Have to be careful. Anyways, let's preview it all after this break.
This episode of the Gegenpressing podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from pro and college basketball to UFC, MMA, and more. You always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. With live betting options, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. BetOnline is truly the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite leagues and events. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, BELIEVE, to receive your rewards. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts.
So yeah, the first game is Köln against Bochum. Stefan, I struggle with the result here. And this is typical Friday game fashion, right? Not the biggest ticket. As I said, though, we have lots of Köln listeners. But you know what? I might surprise you here. I actually went for a 2-0 Köln win. Bochum lost the big fixture against Schalke, right? Getting them in all sorts of trouble. And Köln, and then you keep pointing this out, and I think you're right. They just keep winning the games that they should be winning, and this should be a game that they should be winning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of thought Bochum would have a bit more about them in that last round against Schalke. I thought they'd take a draw, and I'm not entirely surprised because Schalke have been really impressive recently. But I think it does kind of point to a degree of limitations in this Bochum side, and I think in particular, if you look at that away form, they've really struggled on the road this season. And Cologne just kind of feel like they're slowly but surely kind of getting back to, we kind of mention this more and more every week in 2023, they feel like they're kind of getting back to where they were before under Baumgart. So yeah, I think I've gone for a very similar result, not quite the same, but I've gone for a 2-1 win for Cologne. I don't think it'll be easy, but yeah, I kind of suspect they'll win this game.
Yeah. Okay. So the next fixture is Bayern against Augsburg. Swabian weeks for the Bavarians. This is first against Stuttgart, now against the Bavarian Swabians from Augsburg. My friends in Augsburg, the suburb of Munich. And full caveat, we are recording this before the Champions League game. So that could change things. So keep that in mind. But I went for a 3-1 Bayern Munich win here. Although I am still not 100 convinced by them. That Stuttgart result, I predicted they would beat Stuttgart 4-0. It was a 2-1, and they were lucky in the end, I think, that they got the 3 points there. I just feel like Bayern is still just have a wobble in them, Stefan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't entirely disagree with you, but I also kind of feel like Augsburg have just been quite disappointing recently.
Yeah.
And I just can't really see beyond a pretty convincing win for Bayern this game. I think it's going to be a pretty easy one. I know I said this about the Stuttgart game, and they kind of, I mean, they kind of had it wrapped up, and then all of a sudden they didn't, and it ended up being a bit of a kind of shaky afternoon for them. But I'm going for a 3-0 win for Bayern in this game because, yeah, I just don't think Augsburg have much to offer them in this game. So,
yeah,
very straightforward game for me.
Yeah, so 3-0, 3-1. We're pretty close here as well. Up next, Leipzig against Gladbach. Leipzig will probably still wonder how they did not get anything from that Dortmund result.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you kind of give your suggestion first, and I'll jump in.
So I think Leipzig are gonna rebound and win this game quite easily, 3-0 at home. Although they're missing Nkunku, but I still think the quality is just there, and they're just better than Gladbach.
Yeah, I think they're better than Gladbach too, but I do kind of feel like, I don't know, I was saying this to Chris on the main show this week, that even though Leipzig definitely could have left that game with a point, it seemed to me as though these injuries and fitness problems were definitely, catching up with them. It's not just Nkunku, it's Timo Werner being ill, and both fullback positions kind of being a bit all over the place, and Willie Orban didn't exactly look 100% fit. I know he missed a game recently, obviously, to give blood, and Konrad Leimer being out as well in that game with the big issues. So there's something about Leipzig that makes me think they're not quite 100%. They'll obviously have Man City on the horizon to think about as well. So I'm going for a 2-1 win. I think they still will win because, as you kind of said, at the end of the day, Gladbach are pretty trash at the moment. But I don't think it's going to be an easy one for them. So I've gone for, 2-1. So a narrow win.
Yeah. So up next is Frankfurt against Stuttgart. Frankfurt, of course, drew 2-2 to Wolfsburg. Stuttgart kept it close against Bayern, but we also know there's always a post-Bayern Munich hangover. So I actually think Frankfurt are going to win this pretty easily 2-0.
Yeah, I've gone for something very similar. I did kind of try to think maybe we might see some sort of life from Stuttgart, but it just looks so unlikely considering the weekend result there. And obviously, it feels like they're still being kind of punched in the gut by that Schalke result a few weeks ago. And I'm really kind of quite worried for Stuttgart at this point now. I've been saying on the show for a while now, I think Frankfurt are looking a little tired. Delighted to see that my prediction of 2-2 in that Wolfsburg game come true. I was saying to Chris on the main show, I was really disappointed that I was so close to getting both of them right in terms of that one and the Dortmund result. But yeah, and it didn't really surprise me.
I got the Dortmund result right.
Yeah, so I wasn't entirely surprised by the Frankfurt result because I think they have been looking quite tired. Wolfsburg have been looking better. But yeah, this is a game that they'll really appreciate, I think, because it's an easier one at home. They've got a decent home record, so I've gone for a 3-1 win for the Eagles.
Yeah, I was really disappointed. We'll get to that in a moment, that Schalke scored one late because I predicted they would win 1-0 last week, but here we are. Close predictions. At least we were close. But first, before we get to Schalke this week, Hertha against Mainz. I went for a 1-1 draw here. It just screams 1-1 draw to me, this game.
I've gone for the exact same result.
There we go.
I think quietly but surely Hertha are kind of pulling together a decent run of form. They've had some tricky games, particularly away from home. But if you kind of look at their home form, since kind of the turn of the year, if I'm not mistaken, they've picked up 2 wins now in a row. Yeah, they beat Gladbach, they've beaten Augsburg, and Mainz have been okay on the road this season, but they've also been quite hot and cold, I find. So yeah, I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this game.
Yeah, huge implications, of course, in the relegation battle, right? Which is shaping up to be really exciting. Hertha on 20, and then we have 4 teams on 19 points below them. So it's getting really, really interesting, and I think that's not going to change very much after this match day. It's one team that I think that has made this relegation battle so interesting is the one that's in my match of the week. I think that's going to be everyone's match of the week, right? The Revierderby. Schalke hosts Dortmund for the first time since being promoted back to the Bundesliga. For the first time in, oh my goodness, when was the last game with attendance? At Gelsenkirchen? Oh man, the pandemic, right? So I guess since 2019?
Must be,
yeah. Since 2019. So first time in 4 years, Schalke will host Dortmund in front of fans. Just let that sink in for a moment. That's quite a big occasion to keep in mind. And I think this game will defy all odds. I was at the return in Dortmund, right? Dortmund really struggled in that game. Schalke, very difficult to break down. Dortmund did eventually do it. It was a Moukoko header that broke the deadlock. But I think, so I went with a 2-0 Dortmund win here, Stefan, but I don't think it's going to be easy for Dortmund at all. Schalke is still undefeated in the second half. Both these teams undefeated in the Bundesliga. Maybe in Dortmund's case, we'll have to see how the game against Chelsea goes, right? Undefeated going into this for 2023. But this is going to be a real test for Dortmund. Even though Schalke are not anywhere near their level, this game is just so special. And I think the roof will come off at the arena of Schalke for this match. And I encourage everyone, every neutral, to turn into this game because it is a spectacle every time. The fans make this very special. You can actually see the other stadium from the roof of the. If you stand on one of the 2 stadiums, you can see the other stadium. That's how close they are. They're only about 53 kilometers apart from one another. So this is. I mean, I'm just trying to hype this up, even though it doesn't really need hype. It's a huge fixture, and but I still think that Dortmund are gonna win it in the end.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, obviously we've been talking about how Schalke have been really good recently. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I tweeted this like on the Sunday after their result. Over the course of the last 5 games, only Dortmund, Bayern, and Mainz have actually picked up more points than Schalke. So it shows the progress they've made. Obviously, Rice picking up that win against Bochum would be a big deal for him last week. And obviously, Schalke go into this game in really high form, but think there's probably going to be a lot of difference between, beating Bochums and the Stuttgarts of this world and taking on this Dortmund side. I think injuries to Dortmund will play a big part in it. Obviously, if Kobel's not back, if maybe Sebastian Haller's not 100% fit after playing midweek against Chelsea, then I think they'll probably play big parts in how Dortmund play, because I thought against Leipzig they looked really kind of limited up front once Haller went off in the second half. Modeste just can't do what Haller does, and neither can Moukoko to a large extent. But having said that, Dortmund do seem to have some sort of psychological edge over Schalke in this fixture. At least they have done in the last kind of 5 or 10 years. Much that could simply be down to Schalke's bizarre tendency to self-implode and to be their worst enemies even before they step onto a football pitch. But even when Schalke are in a good run of form, I never really back them in this derby, to be perfectly honest with you. And even though I'm kind of rooting for Schalke to, pull themselves out of relegation and stay up this season, I feel like this game's maybe beyond them. And that's okay because, as I kind of wrote in my newsletter a few weeks ago about Schalke, this game isn't the one that's going to kind of define whether they stay up or not. It's going to be the games that come after that, and the games they've played before this against other teams in the bottom half of the table. So I've gone for a 2-0 win for Dortmund. I think it'd be a great derby. It'd be a great spectacle, but I'd be very surprised if Schalke were to take anything from this match.
Yeah, just a couple thoughts and memories from obviously the twice Schalke have hurt Dortmund, coming back from the 4-0, right? And then the season when Dortmund challenged under Lucien Favre and Marco Reus was sent off with a red card, essentially ending Dortmund's title dream. I think Dortmund gave away a 9-point lead to Bayern that season. Schalke will be very much aware that this is a year where Dortmund could win a title. And I think they would love nothing more than throw a wrench into those title dreams. Huge implications. And obviously, I've written quite a bit about this derby, and there's more to it on the newsletter. So check that out. Freiburg against Hoffenheim is the first Sunday fixture, and I just can't. Hoffenheim screams relegation to me this year, Stefan. So I went for a 3-1 Freiburg win here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I completely agree with you, really, to be honest, about Hoffenheim. I mean, I think they've been a little unlucky in terms of they've lost the last 2 games 1-0. They came very close against Dortmund on a number of occasions, same against Mainz. But having said that, they've now lost all of the last 5 away games. They've lost all of their games in general, actually, the last 5 games as well. So they are sinking like a stone very quickly, actually. And, I wouldn't be surprised if, looking at the table right now, I think Stuttgart, Hoffenheim and Bochum are probably the teams to be worried right now about relegation. In terms of this game, yeah, I completely agree with you. I've gone for a 2-0 win for Freiburg just because I'm not really going to get carried away with it, because I think Hoffenheim have done a decent enough job of kind of keeping the scores quite low, but they just don't seem to have enough about them to kind of win these games. And having said that as well, Freiburg are a very decent team in terms of home form. There's only 4 teams that have picked up more points than them in the league this season. And they've done a great job of picking up points against the smaller teams in the league. So, yeah, this seems like a pretty straightforward result to me. 2-0 to Freiburg.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. The next one is as straightforward. That's Werder Bremen against Bayer Leverkusen. Werder Bremen baffle me. I picked them, of course, last week to beat Augsburg, and then they lose this game. And now I actually picked Leverkusen to win this one 3-1. And watch it now, Werder Bremen are going to win this.
I actually went for 3-1 as well to Leverkusen, actually, funnily enough.
Yeah, so now Bremen are definitely going to win it. It's just a really difficult side to figure out. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that Bremen have done excellent this year. They, it's Matchday 23, and they have pretty much shaken off any fear of relegation. And that is what they wanted to achieve this year, right? They're on 30 points. We have never seen a team get relegated with 40. We've really never seen a team get relegated with 36, to be honest. They are essentially two wins away from that. They're going to get that. I think I'm not risking anything here by saying this. But I don't think they're going to win this game, which, of course, means they will.
It's interesting, though, because we keep saying that Werder Bremen are safe, and I do completely agree with you. But if they do lose this game, it would mean they've lost 4 of the last 5 in the Bundesliga. And, although there's certainly still plenty of points between them and relegation, it's not an unfathomable amount of money, of points that they could get dragged into it. But I think, if I was a Bremen fan, I'd be probably thinking, yeah, okay, Leverkusen haven't been great this season. They definitely have a bit more of a bite to them now, obviously since Florian Wirtz has come back, and he has been outstanding since he's came back. And it's no surprise that I think Leverkusen have now only lost one of the last 4, I think. So they obviously have a bit of an extra dimension to them, which is why I do think they'll also win this game 3-1. But if I was a Werder Bremen fan, I'd be thinking, right, okay, maybe Leverkusen might be beyond us, but after that, we got Gladbach, we got Hoffenheim, we got Mainz, there's Freiburg, and then there's Hertha and Schalke. Those are the really big games, and if they can't turn around this kind of really poor run of form right now, going into those games, then all of a sudden those kind of 4 or 5 teams below them can start picking up important points because they start going into these kind of 6-pointer matches, don't they? Against the likes of Hoffenheim and Hertha and Schalke, who will be within touching distance of them if they do keep losing games. So I'm not really saying Werder Bremen have to start ringing the alarm bells just yet, but after this Leverkusen game, I think they really have to start getting their act together, or else they could find themselves getting dragged into that relegation race towards the end of the season.
It's going to be interesting for them, I think. The next 4 weeks could be either it's now over, the season is over in a positive sense, or all of a sudden they have to kind of look over their shoulders. Very defining 4 weeks for them, I think. But yeah, the final match of the week is Wolfsburg against Union. Wolfsburg got the final match of the week last week too. Interesting. Anyhow, that's your match of the week, so I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, you know, I think it's the second Wolfsburg game I've picked as my match of the week as well. I think this game just kind of interests me for two separate reasons. You know, I feel like Wolfsburg have, under Niko Kovac, they've had such a kind of roller coaster of a season where it's been very high and then very low. You know, they had a really difficult, actually it was the other way around. I guess it was low, then high, then a bit of a low again in 2020 to start 2023. But recently they kind of have pulled it back together. They kind of ended that kind of run of losing games with a draw against Schalke. They beat Cologne recently. And then, as we kind of talked about before, they managed to take points off Frankfurt. And I think they go into this game with a bit more about them. They have a bit more kind of confidence. They've always kind of had that firepower and a really decent squad, really. And perhaps more than just about any other team in this league, it feels as though they do kind of really rely on the confidence of their players, because on their day, Wolfsburg probably do have one of the most impressive squads in the Bundesliga. They have some great individual players, great defenders, great midfielders, and, you know, obviously great forward line. But it feels as though if those players, for one reason or another, the confidence isn't there, they just kind of drop straight down to being a very average mid-tables team. But then when they do have a bit of form about them, they're suddenly kind of this side pushing for the top six. And I do kind of feel like they're more towards the latter right now after the last couple of results, especially that Frankfurt result as well. And they go into this match against an Union Berlin side who are beginning to look quite heavy-legged. Maybe that kind of, you know, result against Ajax was great in the short term, but seems to have been quite taxing for them in the long term. Obviously, you know, drawing against Cologne, that absolute battering off Bayern as well, and of course the draw against Schalke as well before that. So they're dropping points quite quickly right now, and I'm just really intrigued to see if Union can step up to another quite tricky test here, because I think Wolfsburg will be kind of back to their best. So it's not that much of a trip for them to go out to Wolfsburg, but I still think it's a match that they might struggle in. And I've actually gone for a bit of an upset here, and I think Wolfsburg will actually win this game 2-1. But that's not so much the reason I think it's going to be an interesting game. I just think it's going to be an interesting game because you've got one team on the ascendancy and one team who are really beginning to kind of stumble a bit. And that often provides the best kind of matches, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I echo everything you say. I've gone for a similar result. I went for a 1-1 draw. I just don't think. I mean, as you said, one is on the descendancy, one is on the ascendancy. I do want to kind of point out that Union has. Do they have the week? No, they're playing in the Europa League, so they don't have the week off, which will hurt them. But yeah, it is definitely an interesting match to watch. But Stefan, this is the preview show. We've actually done it in time for your dinner plans. We had a budget of 25 minutes. This has been 21. So good for us. I just want to point out, as always, this is brought to you in association with Get German Football News. They're very kind and always posting our predictions. And then, of course, also the show is sponsored by Bet Online. But yeah, we'll be back next week. Thanks again, as always, for listening. Any final thoughts? Anything that you want to add, Stefan, before we wrap this up?
No, just as a kind of shout out I did in the main show this week was to get in your reviews for the show on your Apple podcast if you can. As I said on the main show, I was joking with Chris that the last review we had in the Europe for the show was about 7 or 8 years ago, I think. Despite a lot of people do leave like 5 stars or 4 stars, whatever. A little comment always helps, and I think what we'll start doing is kind of giving people a shout out if they do leave a review. So if that's something you might want to do, you can leave us 5 stars and then say Stefan is a Borussia Dortmund hater. I'll still appreciate the response. I get enough of that on Twitter as it is, so you might as well stick it in on Apple Podcasts as well. But yeah, we'll start.
Before we do actually go, I want to just say that you have said lots of positive things about Dortmund recently.
Yeah, I wrote a newsletter this week praising them, so yeah.
Fake
Take
news.
that. Yeah, fake news, yeah. Character assassination. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, we appreciate all the support. And yeah, we'll be back next week with tons more content. Until then, auf Wiedersehen.
Ende in Sicht.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.